I've skipped over the login here, and I've gone just to American Studies. And as you can see, there's two outcomes here that have been added to American Studies. This was added as part of the training exercise. The outcome name here is scholarship. Students will integrate forms of scholarship in more than one discipline to understand and interpret American culture. The outcome status is current. That means this is something that we're tracking here, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And outcome 2 is just to show that we can add. If we want to edit the outcome, we can come in here. We have two types of outcomes, learning outcomes and administrative outcomes. And there's a start date here and there's an end date. Now, one thing I think is really important to note is that the people at Nuentiv told us that really we should be tracking maybe 3, at the most 4 outcomes for a given program. So if you go and you look at the list of outcomes that is on the website, you'll see that there's an awful lot of outcomes there. TracDat is about those things which we are tracking. If we don't have an assessment in place for that thing, in place for that outcome, then we shouldn't have it in there. Means of assessment. Okay. This is a outcome name is scholarship. Here's the outcome. Here is not editable because we're in the assessment area. And here is the assessment method, direct writing assessment. Research rubric in course. In the criteria is 80% of students will achieve at least 4 out of 5 on the rubric. This is the criteria can shift as we learn more, but the criteria does have to be something that is quantifiable. And there's really only 2 possible results for the criteria or criterion. Either we pass or we don't. And we'll track that year over year. This is where a possibility to look at what we track comes into play. If year after year we track certain student outcomes, we choose 3, and we track them, and we find in year 3 that 2 of those outcomes we repeatedly do well on, we may decide no longer to track those outcomes. We may say, look, we know we're doing this. We can show the results for this, and choose to focus on 2 different outcomes. But the key here is really limited outcomes selected for assessment, stated assessments, and quantitative criteria. You see, when we say quantitative, we're of course not saying it's done by a computer. Obviously, the rubric here can be a qualitative rubric, but the quantity of students that get this has to be quantified. So, what would I do here, right? Related goals. This is where this is not necessary to do, and this might be down the line. You can tie outcomes to strategic goals. So TracDat does enterprise planning, and you can have outcomes tied to strategic goals. We can say, for example, that this goal of scholarship is tied to advancing academic excellence. It's not really tied to anything else. Where this might be more useful is if you have some general goals in a program, you might show how these outcomes support those goals, or general goals in School of Arts and Humanities, say. And you can tie that to it. Where that becomes important is that if you do check off that this outcome is tied to this goal here, you can generate a report and you can say, give me a list of all outcomes that support this advancing academic excellence. Or, you know, for these outcomes, show me what larger goals they support. Finding and recommendations. Okay. So, date. 75% of the students got out. This is a finding. And a finding is a result on your assessment criteria. This is the date that the finding was made. We can add additional material in here if we want. I forget exactly where you put it, but there's a place to link this to a report or a spreadsheet or some other artifact that might demonstrate this. And you can add multiple findings on it. If next year we assess for the same thing, okay, we can enter an additional finding here. Say criterion not met, let's say let's say 79%. Okay, so the criterion there is not met. And then we have to say, well, what is the action plan? Okay, so this is finding. Always seems to be convening a committee, right? So convene committee. If I can spell committee. Okay. We're going to update this today. We can set a different date. Say action plan in progress, right? Save changes. Oh, and here you go. If you want related documents, you can add related documents here. We could put up a spreadsheet or something of that nature that shows the results of the assessment. Okay. We're getting almost there. Go into reports. And these are various canned reports that you can do. Curriculum map shows the outcomes of the different shows how outcomes are seen in different courses, if you get down to that level, and define outcomes by courses. Assessment impact by unit objectives. Here, if we run this, we'll see. Look at all learning outcomes. And these are the assessments that we put in there during the training. Some of them are standard. Some of them are standard. Some of them are less so. So if we did learning and we just looked at, what we do here is get a list of the assessment methods, the criterion, schedule, and responsibility. So we see here that there's a series of findings, one in June or July, one in September.